People often say there's a fine line between love and hate, and many of us cross that line every day, whether it's with coworkers, relatives, or friends. It surprises me that I even like this person. It's funny, right? You're such a downer. I really can't stand that woman. She's my least favorite. Then there are those who always lecture you about being more compassionate or tell you to stop being so negative. They say you should show kindness to others. But for me, I'm more concerned about my own situation and the well-being of my family. Having friends is great, but you need to be realistic. From now on, you can only trust your friends. In my case, not all my relatives or friends were there for me. It was a tough lesson I had to learn the hard way. The best part was finding out who my real friends and family are. My name is Pace Jensen. I'm 29 years old, passionate about running, and a former football player. Amy is my wife with an attitude to match. She's a gorgeous little mama. Being a father to 3 young boys is the greatest thing I have ever done for myself. At the time of our collapse, Amy and I had been married for about 5 years. The reason we had children so quickly and often was because I couldn't get enough of my wife. I lived and breathed Amy. This is where I believe my downfall began. We set our vows the day after we graduated from college. We both graduated from UMass. Amy majored in secondary education, and I majored in management information systems. Amy got a job at one of the elite private schools in Dallas, and I worked at Empire Funding. We started off pretty well in life. Our marriage had its ups and downs like most marriages, but nothing major. I think our first argument was when I wanted to buy a 1968 Shelby Cobra GT500. It was a 2-door fastback with a 302 cubic inch 4.9 L V8 engine, and it was candy apple red with 2 white stripes down the middle. Unlike some people, I could afford a $100,000 car, but I just really love classic cars. Anyway, as I said, Amy and I had a great life. We lived close to my family, which I thought was nice. My mom and dad were in their 50s, and I also had a younger brother named Rob. Rob was 17 years old and attended the same high school where Amy taught. In fact, she taught in his class too. I think Rob was an only child because he was 12 years younger than me. Rob and I were as close as you can be to a little brother that is 12 years younger than you. When something happened or when Rob needed something, I was expected to make a sacrifice. This is how my family lived. That was our motto. You need to have the courage to deal with this. Be a hero, son. Just give it to your little brother, and you'll be a better person in the long run. My father repeated this so often that it got to the point where I simply ignored it. Another good thing in my life was my best friend, Jeffrey Parks. He was the brother I wish I had. We've been best friends since 3rd grade, and if anyone knew how I felt, it was him. Jeff was an attorney, and I expected him to have my back in all legal matters. Anyway, last Monday when I got home, Amy told me that she had taken the boys to her sister's house. It was 4 houses down. When she told me that, I thought we'd be alone, if you know what I mean. But she said she wanted to tell me something. I didn't think life could get any better. But then Amy told me she was pregnant. I wanted to know when the baby was due so we could start buying things before the baby was born. I think I was as happy as a person can be. Damn it, I just hoped it would be a little girl so I could spoil her to death. But for some reason, Amy was a little out of it and had this distant expression on her face. I asked her what happened. Pace, this is not your child. Amy said it so quietly that I didn't hear it at first. What's going on, honey? Why are you so sad? Pace, I love you, but I don't want to have kids with you anymore, Amy said. I felt a bit confused and asked her why. Amy, you've always said you wanted a big family. So why did you change your mind so suddenly? I knew this wouldn't be easy. Then Amy started avoiding the main point, as if what she was about to say would change everything. Amy, I love you no matter what. So just tell me how you're feeling right now. Just say it. Then she stopped, took out her phone, and pressed the speed dial. Could you come here, please? Whoever she was talking to sounded like they knew more about it than I did. Amy, who was it? And what the hell is going on? Amy said, just keep up the pace. I need help getting my words across to you. I don't want to spoil what I have to say. I asked her who was coming and what it was that she just couldn't tell me without help. Damn it. If you can't tell your husband, who the hell else could you tell? All sorts of thoughts were running through my head, none of them good. But what happened next shocked me. 2 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Amy answered the phone, and when she returned, she was followed by my mom, my dad, and my 17-year-old brother, Rob. Okay, Amy, what the hell is going on? Damn, how can I say this without hurting you? Rob just stepped in and said, listen, Pace, Amy is in love with me. That's what she wants to say. Mom and Dad are here to support us. Rob said, listen, bro, it happens. We didn't want to fall in love, but we did. The baby she's carrying is mine, and we need you to accept that Amy and I will be family whether you like it or not. I started laughing as if this was some kind of good joke. Right, that's how it should be. Listen, Amy, what do you want to tell me? Nobody laughed. I looked at Amy, but she was staring at the ground. Amy, please look at me and tell me this isn't true. Tell me you're not being so foolish. My dad said, son, I know this is tough, but what's done is done. I know you're hurting, but Rob is your brother, and we have to find a way to handle this. I know it's hard, but we all have to make sacrifices. I asked my mom if she had anything to do with this. She said, son, I love both of my boys. I don't want this to tear our family apart. You need to learn to adapt to it. Everybody here is family. In this case, you have to be the hero. You must discover the inner strength to act morally and without anger. I was older than they were, and I couldn't believe they were asking me to merely give my life away for a tiny prickly idiot. That was the precise moment I started to despise them all. I mean, seriously and with passion, the fine line between love and hate was broken. The question is, how much can a man hate his family? The same family that betrayed me from all sides. My wife, brother, and what parent would agree to this travesty? How could I have known that it would only get worse? I couldn't stand it anymore. I turned and walked out. With Amy and Mom and tow, Rob pulled Amy away from me. I walked 4 houses to pick up my children. The sheriff's deputy met me at her sister's house. For a moment, I thought Amy's sister Rachel was involved, but she looked just as shocked as I did. The sheriff's deputy told me that I was not allowed to see my children until the court made a custody decision. I looked around and felt that with every second, the hatred was growing more and more. I asked the sheriff if I could go back to my own house. He asked whose name was on the mortgage. I said it was mine and only mine, since there was no order preventing me from being at home. I turned to go home. As I walked past my father, he grabbed my hand. Pace, listen, son. Please don't do anything you'll regret later, my father said. We all need to sit down and discuss this as adults. I looked at him and told him to never call me son again. No, get your dirty hand off me, or you'll regret this for the rest of your life. Now leave me alone, all of you backstabbers, I said. I looked at Amy and told her, if I were you, I'd get a good lawyer, because you're going to need it. Enjoy your kids while you still can. Now get out and take these fools with you. Just as I was about to move, Rob shot me. He hit the right side of my face before I could get away. My father grabbed me and Rob hit me again. Luckily, Rob isn't very strong or I would have been seriously hurt. The sheriff jumped off the porch, ran up, and attacked Rob. I broke free from my father's arms and punched him in the mouth. He fell to the ground, and the look on his face was one of complete shock. He would never have believed that Pace, a reasonable child, would be so angry. When the fight ended, Rob and his father were arrested for assault. But little did I know that the best was yet to come. A couple of days later, the assistant district attorney called me and asked me to testify. At the same time, I just happened to mention that it all started with the fact that my 29-year-old wife, with whom I lived for 7 years, was pregnant with her 17-year-old brother. I also said that my brother went to 12th grade at the same school where Amy taught. They seemed to show some interest in this information. 2 days later, I went to meet the only person I could rely on. I arrived at his office in a good mood. It turned out to be another trip of treachery on the Pace-Jensen freeway. While waiting for him to finish, he walked out with his new client, Amy. She looked back, saw me, and grinned. I looked at Jeff and said, Better, Jeff, you would do it with me? Jeffrey Parks turned and walked away. That's how it all worked out so quickly. Jeff was their man. He knew how I would react and cut me off. I never thought he would do something like this. I'll always wonder why he chose to follow her. But you know what? It doesn't matter because as soon as he said yes, he was dead to me. Forget them. I had to laugh again, but this time, it felt different. It just gave me another reason to keep pushing boundaries. I was changing, and hate was making that happen. I turned to a different kind of lawyer, Stevie Crust. Stevie was known for being a real pain. His motto was, "If you have money, go for it." He was about to close his office when I found him. I asked him if he wanted to be involved in a case that would soon become nationally known. He saw the dollar signs, unlocked his door, and we walked in. I wrote him a check for $10K and told him that sooner or later, he would have to post bail for me. He told me he couldn't be involved in anything illegal. I told him about my plans. He laughed so hard he spat out his gum. I walked home, and when I got there was a sheriff's deputy sitting in the driveway. He got out of his car and asked who I was. I showed him my ID. He gave me an envelope and said, "You've been served." I went in and threw the papers into the trash can. I didn't even look at them. Then I made a few calls, had a snack, and went to bed. Tomorrow will be a new day. After a good night's sleep, I brushed my teeth, rinsed my mouth, and combed my hair. After all, I have to look my best as soon as I walk out the door to grab the newspaper. Bam! They attack me. "Mr. Jensen, is it true that your wife is a teacher and is pregnant with your teenage brother?" One reporter asked. Then another asked, "What school does she teach at?" Another asked, "Why is she still free?" I said, "I don't know." From that moment on, life turned into hell for everyone involved in this sad case. Reporters were stationed outside Amy's school, my parents' house, Jeff's office, and Amy's sister's house. Jeff loved publicity, but not this kind. When Amy and my ex-parents first approached Jeff, he was under the impression that Rob was at least 18, not 17. The next thing that made Jeff even angrier was when his office was picketed by a group of family rights advocates. One of the protesters even threw cow urine on him. The next morning, I went on the Nancy Grace show, and she called Amy every name but a child of God. If you've ever watched Nancy Grace, you know that once she gets hold of a story, she doesn't let go. Nancy's reporting on Amy and her group of troublemakers was relentless from start to finish. Hello, everyone. A freeloading child molester is carrying a child that belongs to a young, easily influenced man. The district attorney should be involved, Nancy shouted. I recorded the show. I look pretty dapper, I think so myself, but the camera does add 10 pounds. 2 days later, Amy was arrested for second-degree sex with a minor, breach of public trust, and rape. Rob was removed from his parents' custody and sent to a juvenile detention center. They eventually learned that he had to stay there until he turned 18. A month later, I sat in the courtroom across from Amy and my former family. She was represented by an attorney who used to be my friend. The only person I felt sorry for was my mother. She just sat there looking sad. It was heartbreaking, but that's life. Amy and Mrs. Jensen have called me hundreds of times over the past month, asking if I would sit down and talk to them before things got too far. I asked Amy one question. "Did you sit and talk to me before you had sex with my brother?" She didn't answer, so there was no need to talk. After Amy was arrested, my children were returned to me at a quick custody hearing. The judge awarded me full custody, alimony, and a house that was already in my name. As the criminal trial approached, I had to testify. I wanted to make sure that this fallen woman would serve a long time in prison. But it was not destined to happen. Amy never went to trial. She took a plea deal and received 3.5 years. In her statement at sentencing, she asked for my forgiveness. I almost felt sorry for her. Her life was ruined. Her teaching career is over, and worst or best, she will have to register as a sex offender for the rest of her life. 4 years have passed since then. I took the children and moved 2,000 miles away. Now, our family consisted of 7 people, my 3 sons, and we became a smaller version of the Brady family. I know, some people are going to call me a wimp, but they're totally wrong. Do you think I'd stick around with a woman who had my ex's little brother? No way. My wife's name is Amy. I met her 4 months after we moved. Amy is a motorcycle cop, and the day she gave me a ticket changed my life. When she walked back to her bike, I looked at her and knew she would be my next wife. I had to do some convincing, but once I got her into bed, it was the best day of my life. Oh, and did I mention she has her own handcuffs? I love her to death, but it took a long time for me to trust her. Amy's been through a lot, just like me. We're really similar. She's not religious, and we both test each other in different ways, which works well for us. But most of all, I love the wild side she brings to the bedroom. Second story. Hey everyone. I've been in a relationship for the past 2 years, and I'm feeling really unsure about it. My girlfriend is super clingy and calls me constantly, even when I don't answer. I'm the complete opposite. She yells at me for no reason and expects me to listen to her, but she doesn't listen to me. I'm not sure if I should keep dating her or break up. There were a few things that happened over the past 6 months. We took a break, and both slept with other people during this time. One of her best friend's husbands, who's also her friend, tried to take advantage of her when she was drunk. She told me she refused, but she's still in touch with him, even though I asked her not to be. I get that we were on a break, but it still bothers me. She doesn't seem shady, but she's really eager to get a ring. I'm not ready to commit when I'm unsure about some things. I don't know if I can fully trust her these days. It feels like you could trust a snake over a woman. I asked my buddy to get some advice from people who have been through this. Please help.